Hey everyone, Aaron here. I am just hopping on and giving a brief introduction for this video. So we will be covering advanced masking techniques, and that will really revolve around applying those masking techniques to a real design. So we'll be using an elevation, and so an elevation drawing is just a 2D version of like an up and down surface, like this wall, but it will be of a fake coffee shop, and it could be anywhere in the world you would like it. But just a few things I want to make super clear before we get started is that you can always change the speed of this video by clicking the gear in the bottom right of the YouTube window. I cannot emphasize that enough. Some students really prefer to have that. And also for my sequential learners, I also have tips written as little steps in orange little bubbles that populate in any of the four corners during the video. And I also have all of those tips written down in the show notes on Canvas underneath the video. So just know you are well equipped. You have these tools. If it feels too fast, slow me down. You have lots of options to do that on YouTube. I do this at a normal pace, and the reason for that is because I like to show you kind of the standard workflow of how that works without interrupting and taking time to pause and really go in depth. That's what I use those captions for, so you can pause it and read a little bit more, because it's really important to see that fluidity and that flow in Photoshop. And if we start to truncate that, it's really hard for our brains to piece together A through Z. So that's why I do that, but slow me down if you need to. Please do not hesitate to do that, or speed me up if you want to. Totally up to you, but just sit back, relax, follow along with this lecture just by viewing. You don't need to actually follow along in your computer. So by follow along, I mean just be a good listener. Don't actively follow, like do the things I'm doing in Photoshop. So just be a good listener. I have all the notes below. You don't need to take notes, but your assignment after this will be incredibly similar, but it will be much simpler. I just like to show you the whole vast variety of Photoshop so you can be empowered as an interior designer and really know what's in your tool belt. So if it feels overwhelming, take a break, pause it, read the captions, slow me down. But this is really the hump of the course. And once we have this assignment completed, my students state that they feel about twice as comfortable in Photoshop. So that's why we do this at the beginning, this harder project. So once we have this project completed, honestly, it's all downhill from here. Because the skills that we start adding on are really small, and masking is that big giant cornerstone I've been talking about. So I will see you in the next one. Enjoy, sit down, relax, change that speed if you need to, and I will talk to you later. Thanks. Hi everyone, let's dig in. We will start by opening our Photoshop file, and keep in mind I'll have written instructions in the show notes and also on this video. So let's open up this file and dig in and really figure out what we're working with. So I see my different layers here. I put in a few lights for you guys and line work as well. And so this will be our playground to add textures. And we'll be adding in finishes and using masking to accomplish that. So what I'm doing right here is I am trying to add a folder. So I just added a folder and grouped everything together just by simply clicking the layers with Shift and then the folder button. Okay, and feel free to pause anytime, slow me down, speed me up. And you may have to pause to read the captions, but here essentially what I'm doing is I am getting some images from Google of textures. And so it's really important to find textures that are good quality. So go ahead and pause this portion here to read those instructions on this little hack I just did here. So that will ensure that I can find materials that are of a higher resolution and won't look grainy or pixelated when I go to put those in Photoshop. So take some time, find textures you like. Keep in mind, I will dictate what textures you need in the assignment. So mine will be a little different from what we're doing in the assignment, and that's just to keep things fresh and interesting. Okay, so now that I have a texture I like, what I can begin to do is I can start to import that into Photoshop. And we have a few options when it comes to that. You can either save it to your desktop, then drag it in, or if you're on a Mac, you can simply just drag and drop that into Photoshop. And so here I'm just stretching that out, making sure it covers the portion I desire, and go ahead and pause to read those captions if you need to. That's for people who may prefer to read along and follow along, But here, I'm just making sure that my texture is behind my line work. And once I do that, I can start masking. And so if you have any questions on advanced masking, please refer to my last video, and I will really go in depth on how I'm actually doing it here in this video. So this video is more to show you the process of how to do this assignment. So it will require you to work quite a bit independently and figure things out a bit on your own and troubleshoot. But that's really the fun of Photoshop, is that we have to explore a bit to really understand. So here I am just cleaning things up and masking out portions that I don't want. So remember, we select those portions and hit delete. And of course, there's some exceptions with how we do that, but that'll be in the former video. And then here I'm speeding things up a bit, and I am importing a texture of a tile. And you'll notice that this tile is not just a clean image. So I am just going to delete, not mask, delete. Yes, I said delete, even though I was talking about how important pixel preservation was. But I'm just using the rectangular marquee tool here, and I am deleting the portions I don't want. So pay attention to the craftsmanship here. We will want to make sure this is neat and clean, because essentially what we'll end up doing is we will copy and paste different portions of this together and stitch it together almost like a quilt, and then merge those layers. And again, just want to emphasize, you are more than welcome to always pause, read the captions, and get some more information. So I've included those captions below in orange, but here I'm just copying and pasting, and I've listed in that caption how I did that with some shortcuts. And then make sure to merge the layers. Again, this is on the caption below. Go ahead and pause if need to. You'll end up pausing quite a bit in this video, and if needed, you can always slow me down on Photoshop. I can't, on YouTube. I can't emphasize that enough. I know this stuff goes by pretty quickly, but we have tools to change that if that's not working for you. So I am just adjusting that here, and there's a few things I can do. So I am right now merging those layers, and then I will use a transformation and I'll shrink this a bit. And so for my transformation, again, this will be in the caption, I am just doing Command T or Control T just to get to that shortcut so I can shrink that up a bit. And now once I have that, what I'm doing next is I'm just going to duplicate that again so I have more of it and merging those layers together. And you may have to watch this a few times, and that is totally okay. We are learning. This is an advanced topic. This is advanced masking, so it is going to be challenging. So I want you to know that this project will push you a little bit. It's very intentional, because once we get over this hump, things in Photoshop will be much, much easier for you. So I know this is years of practice of me doing this, but I can assure you, my students, once we complete this assignment, their comfort level about double or triples in Photoshop, just because I do challenge them to really think critically and use multiple skills that we've learned over the past 3 weeks. So again, I'm just shrinking this penny tile here so it doesn't look giant. And always remember, we don't want our textures, the scale of them, to feel weird. It would be really weird if my penny tile was the size of a dinner plate on this elevation. It would just look awful. So keep that in mind as you're progressing forward. And I'm just masking here, cleaning things up, and that masking will be in the video that precedes this, with some more tips and tricks on masking. It really is just an extension of what we already learned, but just more in depth. So make sure to look at that. Okay. So at this point, I am just cleaning things up a bit, masking, getting the hang of it, really getting in those little values. So a few things I want to mention is I added a layer of shadows for you guys and also lights. That was something I did for fun. Just make sure that when you put your textures in, or finishes, whatever you want to call them, the tile, concrete, etc., that it goes under the lights, shadows, and line work. So remember, on our first tutorial, we talked about how the layers panel works. And then here, I just jumped ahead a bit, and I inserted a wavy tile background, and I had to stitch that together the same way I did with the tile. And so that is something that is very common that I can guarantee you'll do in practice. And this exercise we're doing here, I've done several times in interior design. So it's something that you will do and is incredibly practical. I've done this dozens of times. Uh, and you can even take like a Revit drawing and do this. This is just a sketch I made on my iPad. But here I'm just adding in blocks of color. So create a new layer for yourself. And now once you have that new layer for yourself, you can use the rectangular marquee tool. So I'm using that here. Just draw out where you want that color and label that. And then once you have that area selected, what you can do is hit B for brush, or simply select the brush tool. And now you'll have a brush, and if you want to adjust the size, you're more than welcome to do so. You can just color that in. There's other ways to do this, but this is a way that is always very easy for me with the B shortcut. And then here I'm just making the interior of the TV a bit darker. And this is where our menu will be posted. So just a friendly reminder, yes, this is a lot, and I do acknowledge that. And Photoshop can be quite a bit, but we are slowly taking baby steps, and this is our first real big kid assignment in Photoshop that's really meant to push us and get us over that beginner's hump. I know we're only in the first couple weeks, but I really want us to be comfortable in masking and using the rectangular marquee tool in layers, just so we can really blossom when we reach the end. And I will have everyone at the end professional quality. It'll be pretty outstanding what you'll walk away with. So this really is professional level training. All of you will be experts. I know that sounds daunting, but it will happen. So here I am just adding in, blocking out some color areas with the rectangular marquee tool. And you can see here, I'm just holding shift to get multiple areas of selection that build upon each other. And then I'll just color that in with a brush. And something I want to restate again is that your assignment will be just a little bit different than this. I'll have a markup with red pen of what I want you to do exactly. And then here, I'm just giving you general ideas and skills. But I like to do that because I really like to promote critical thinking and having you to think a bit on your own instead of just handing you the answers. But your assignment will be incredibly similar to this. It won't be the same, but it will be very close to it. You'll have the same drawing. It'll just be different requirements. And then here, I'm trying to figure out what color I want. I end up calling this the Brune Cafe. Potentially this could be in the student center on the Taylorsville campus. I do think the current coffee shop, I think it's some sort of Starbucks, could definitely use a facelift. And now that I think about it, I probably should have went with blue for the Bruins, but yellow is a complementary color, and maybe if there was a Bruins logo in there somewhere, it'd work out. But I just continue to add layers, and I continue to mask. And one thing is super important is make sure that your layers are labeled and that our layers are in folders if you wish. Here I'm adding some signage and I'm just typing in Brune Cafe. And you can pick whatever typeface you're comfortable with. And just a fun fact, typeface is the style of the text, and then font is a variation within. So bold, italicized, underline, those are all fonts. So just putting on my graphic design hat and sharing that. But I have some text down below to show you how to add that drop shadow if you wish. And that drop shadow on the assignment will be extra credit. You do not need to be doing that right now, but I'd like to show you because it's fun and it adds a certain sparkle and realism to it. But you may be thinking, hey, Aaron, this is a lot you're going through right now. You added all of these materials, all these textures. I'm overwhelmed. I just want you to see a practical application of how this is used in interior design. Within the past year, I probably had done this exercise about 12 times of applying actual finishes to elevations. But when we get to our assignment, it'll be much simpler. You'll have about 8 to 10 tasks to complete on your assignment. And again, it will be the same elevation as this with different materials. And then you'll also have the option to do a bunch of extra credit on that if you wish. You don't need to. That's always optional to push you. But here I'm just toggling those drop shadow settings. And you can go ahead and go back and pause that caption where it shows you how to get to this. But just play around with this and add a gentle drop shadow if you wish. Totally optional. But you can start to see, like, hey, that's shaping up real good. And I am just going in, I put it on 10 times speed here, and I am putting penny tile behind the shelving. And you do not need to get this detailed. I'm knocking out the edges of the shelf here, so it's white. Uh, I couldn't help myself. I love Photoshop and interior design. You do not need to be that detailed. That is just me being my interior design self. And then I just colored the background behind that black with the shelf edges, gave it a dark toe kick, and just playing around with different colors. And this portion isn't really important for you to like enjoy and see in real time because it's so repetitive. I'm just taking those same skills with masking and doing it in different portions. So it is nothing new, just repetitive. And I added some glass for the little pastry display. And then here, I went overboard with the amount of cups. I'll have you maybe put in like 2 mugs. I don't need you to put in 40 million like I did here. That's not something we need to be doing at this stage, but I like to show you because 1, I can't help myself, and 2, I get carried away and really love doing this kind of elevation exploration. And if you notice that glass, I made look see-through. So that's called a blending mode. And I'll show you how to do that. I think we cover it in module 8, maybe 7, but it's just a little trick to really add a wow factor to your work. But I just drew this by hand with my Apple Pencil and exported it as a Photoshop file from Procreate. I won't be teaching that, but if you're interested, let me know and I can give you an extra credit assignment where you could do that. And I'm more than happy to show that if you wish. But I am just putting in an espresso machine. And again, you will not have to do this level of detail. I just do this because I want to get you excited about Photoshop and how this is an actual design tool. And you can do your homework in here, an actual design process, which is super cool. So that really, it's coming together here. I don't have too much left. I just added a quick shadow underneath there. But I'm doing what's called adjustments right now, where I'm changing the lightness of certain elements. I will get to that in future modules, but like I said before, I want to show you the whole process and not piecemeal it. I will teach that in future modules, so just sit back and relax and enjoy. It'll all make sense by the end of the semester. But I'm just populating that TV screen menu. And so that's looking really good. And then this is where you do not need to keep watching if you don't want to, but I am just making this look pretty. We will not be doing this, but I'm adding coffee beans. I'm going to add a guy that's working behind the counter. We will not get to this level in this project, but at the end of the semester, this will be expectations in all of our work, is that we will be doing like fully complete, fleshed out designs like this, which is really cool. And right here, I would show this to a client. I'm just adding a texture. I'll show you how to do this in the future. But I want you to walk away from this class being able to show something to a client and it looks incredibly professional. That is my goal for all of you. I want us to look clean, crisp, professional, and we'll do it together. So before you get started, just deep breath. You can do this and do not expect perfection. I am not looking for perfection. I'm looking for the best you can do. And everything's listed in the rubric. And keep in mind, I am very generous with my grading. I will provide constructive feedback if there's room for improvement. But if you did a good job overall, I recognize that, and I'm not too picky with how I grade your work. So just deep breath. You can do this. You got this. You already learned how to mask. You learned about all the tools in Photoshop. You know how to use layers. You know how to make groups and layers. You can label things. You can do all of that. So here I'm just wrapping up a bit and calling it a day. At the end, you just saw me. I was playing around a bit with my workspace settings. But that does it. And if you need anything, go ahead and send me a message, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks.